the Jehovah's Witnesses have put out a new music video targeting young women in the organization, trying to influence them to make the right decisions in life. Does this music video empower young women to consider their options, or simply reinforce their subordination to a doomsday cult? Let's watch.
When you're young, it's hard to find your way. Decisions every day. Who to be, what to love, where to put your trust. It's not easy to find your place, but I know how I feel, that Jehovah is real. He knows what I need. I will succeed if I follow his lead. With his word I know the way to go. Jehovah's with me all the way I know. So I will keep myself on this road to life. There are paths my heart wants me to choose. Jehovah sees that too. So I pray every day to keep on the way, and he helps me to see what is true. And with the brotherhood, I always feel so good, 'cause with the love I'm shown, I can be sure that I'm never alone. With his word I know the way to go. Jehovah's with me all the way I know. So I will keep myself on this road to life. I'll keep looking forward to a life that never ends. With his word I know the way to go. Jehovah's with me all the way I know. So I will keep myself on this road to life.
Okay. Jehovah's Witnesses never used to do stuff like this. They routinely criticize other churches for using pop music and like Christian bands at worship services because they felt that detracted from the dignity and reverence that was owed the Almighty God. They felt that it was disrespectful. But of course, fast forward to the new millennium and they have completely reversed course, like the raging hypocrites they are, and started cranking out these music videos and other forms of media in an attempt to keep up and look more mainstream. This video ironically looks reminiscent of either early 2000s Hannah Montana or like she should be kicking a soccer ball around with peace of mind. So you see the video starts off with a guy in her class flirt with our innocent young Jehovah's Witness sister while his friends simultaneously look like they're in the 6th grade. I don't know. But the song is trying to say, you know, it's tough being a teenager, basically, like, who should you listen to? There's all these influences and social media vying for your attention. And this part in itself is not necessarily wrong. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to address this. More and more research is coming out that social media is having adverse effects on younger generations because they were just weaned on this stuff. They've learned to measure their worth in hearts and likes. Social media engineers knew what they were doing. You know, they're treating people's brains like a casino. And when you have young people who are figuring themselves out and they find, oh, everybody likes me and I'm getting all this attention, it's like cha-ching. So that part of the music video is actually a legitimate argument. I'm not actually disagreeing with that But the message they're not going to send young women, like this young sister, and young men frankly too, is to learn critical thinking skills, or at least develop some sort of reasonable moral compass that would lead you to weigh the possible consequences, both physical and emotional, of unprotected sex, or, getting dumped, or navigating the shitstorm of hormones that come with being a teenager. They're not going to empower young people to think for themselves, so if they do say no to sex or dating, they can say no for their own reasons and not because they're being guilted and shamed about sex, which is exactly what happens when you grow up in the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a normal part of growing up to be attracted to a classmate and envision dating them. But Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to date outsiders and are strongly discouraged from even casually dating their own, not even other Jehovah's Witnesses. Since premarital sex is strictly prohibited as a Jehovah's Witness, the only logical conclusion is that marriage is the only justification for dating someone. So, if you're having these thoughts as a teenager, you should rebuff your high school Romeo as quickly as possible to make sure you're not harboring impure thoughts. So, last year, I did a video about Jehovah's Witnesses and sex, and a lot of people were like, well, I can tell you're a pro-choice piece of shit, which is funny because that's not what I was saying at all. That wasn't my argument if they were actually listening. But whatever, sex is a sensitive topic, and people make snap judgments when they're doom scrolling. My argument, Jehovah's Witnesses organization is highly misogynistic. Young women learn that they are not allowed to be sexual beings or explore their sexuality unless they're married. Unless a man comes along, their husband takes their virginity from them, now you can have sex and be a sexual being. You can just switch it on. I was referring more to intense, virulent mind control and thought crime that Jehovah's Witnesses are under about sex. They're so freaking weird about it. That's another thing. I talk about the organization, meaning like the leadership, their obsession with sex and how this obsession has led to pornography addictions. People are just so tightly wound. And then it's very common to hear things about sexual dysfunction and shame around sex. Yes, even though you're married, just because you're married, all of a sudden doesn't mean everything's working. It was just that if Jehovah's Witnesses were a little bit more reasonable in their approach to sex and sex education, they wouldn't have to keep such a tight grip on their parishioners and micromanage their conscience. Their agency was respected and they're not being threatened with punishments left and right, and they're more likely to do the right thing. I really truly believe that. I see it in other churches all the time. They're motivated to want to do right by God and wait and uphold their conservative values or whatever. They're acting out of their own conscience, unlike Jehovah's Witnesses who are so fucking cringy about it. What pisses me off is that they try to portray this young sister as if she's acting out of her own conscience, when really she's just grown up in an organization that has threatened her from infancy that if she ever has sex out of marriage, she's going to be lectured by 3 old men in suits who call her a little whore, and she'll most likely be excommunicated and shunned by her entire community. They're trying to imply that she's following her Bible, her quote, Bible-trained conscience, when we all know there are severe social consequences if you have premarital sex in the Jehovah's Witnesses. The school counselor offers her a college catalog to flip through. This is another extremely tired scene that Jehovah's Witnesses have been subjected to, Jehovah's Witness youth have been subjected to over the years. Why get an education in this wicked world that's going down the toilet when you can invest in a future that will last forever? This is, of course, a lie they keep forcing on Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the years and the generations. That's why you have people who were pissed back when they were witnesses back in the 70s and they were saying not to go to college. Those people have regrets. They have no retirement savings, no safety net to fall back on. And here again in this music video, Jehovah's Witness youth are extremely discouraged from pursuing higher education. I mean, it's not technically a rule. They can't kick you out or punish you for going to college, but the message is if you go to college or pursue higher education, then you're spiritually weak. Like you can see here, she's debating what she wants her future to be. Go to college and fall into the trap of unbridled consumerism as depicted by her shopping spree and fancy sunglasses. Or, commit to slave labor for J.W. Orr. Be a humble servant for Jehovah. So to help her make this decision, she goes to an older, wiser sister in the congregation for advice. And of course the sister is not going to cheer her on. She's the old guard who wants the younger generation to be just as miserable as they are. I've talked about this ad nauseum, that this is a very real thing that exists in the Jehovah's Witnesses social ecosystem. You got the older generations operating from narcissism and regret. Those two things are very real. They're baked into their personality as witnesses. They need the younger generations to follow in their footsteps because it reinforces their life path and choices and tells them that they did the right thing. Rarely will you find an older person in the congregation, I'm talking like 60s and up, who's like, my life has been a total waste, I wish I got laid more, I wish I went to college, got a degree, I wish I made more memories and hit normal developmental milestones than wasted my life in this bullshit. So anytime you see this depiction of like, oh, I'm weighing this major life decision, it's always gonna be, you should consult the older, wiser generation because they're gonna give you the correct answer. Then, of course, our young sister decides to pioneer. But the dumbest thing about it in this video, they make a big show of her praying to whether or not she should pioneer, implying that she's being influenced by God's direction. It's like, bitch, you're doing this because you feel obligated. Let's be real. And why didn't you pray to Jehovah about whether to attend college? Why not pray over your college pamphlet? This isn't biased at all. Make it make sense. And then, whoa, hold up. Win for the feminists. She gets to dig trenches with boys with her pink hard hat. And who says women are the weaker sex while she hauls boxes for Jehovah? I'm just talking trash. I actually used to do this working on Kingdom Halls. It was actually a fun thing to do. But they paint it as the only career path. Like you shouldn't be doing anything else. That's the only path that should appeal. Somehow devoting all your time and resources to advancing the organization's message and pushing their product. That's the problem I have with this scene. Not that there's a chick who wants to lay rebar. But then we get the classic unhappy outsider looking for spiritual direction in their life, specifically in the form of this beautiful Gen Zer who is roaming through the town square. She is so intrigued by the random cult cart offering free Bible studies, she just has to stop and know what this is all about. She's not in any way suspicious of two very meek, quiet women with their hands folded staring into space. If for some godforsaken reason I have to go into the local mall to make like an online return, and I'm hauling ass past a Gap and a Cinnabon, you couldn't stop me for a free perfume sample from a Sephora rep, let alone get me to be inexplicably drawn to this, what is clearly an indoctrination course. Unless I live under a rock, I know who Jehovah's Witnesses are, or I could do a quick Google search on the side and find a zillion YouTube videos and TikToks warning me to stay the hell away from them. But alas, this beautiful, free, worldly girl, did I mention she was free and had her chance to run, not walk, run to the nearest exit, is somehow convinced by the JW sales reps to accept a Bible study. And before you know it, she's trading in her worldly persona, characterized clearly by the immoral leather jacket, for cult life with her new spiritual sister and neutered bestie. She too goes through her own traptism and has the privilege of now living in a future utopia, inhabited only by other Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, whose fantasy of freedom and world peace includes, apparently, riding around on elephants. There you have it. Another on-brand cringe fest for young Jehovah's Witness women who are taught to deny their natural sexual development, ignore rising inflation and real-world concerns, and basically be a basic bitch for Watchtower for the rest of her life. And best of all, it's leak-proof. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon.